What you're looking at is the little wood burning stove after it's been repainted, and the stove was very easy to repaint in that I burned the stove the first time and it created like a saddle pattern where the paint just burned off, and so I wiped all that off and sprayed it with this Rust-Oleum high heat paint, which was very inexpensive at Lowe's. And then I burned a second fire and it burned off a little bit more. I pulled the fire more towards the front door and that burnt off more paint. I wiped it down and sprayed it again. So each time that I've actually burned the fire, everywhere it burns off, I just wipe the paint and spray a little more, and it just gets more and more solid. And now I'm very it's well covered, and I'm very happy with the result. The paint is very solid and it holds up to the heat of the fire. Now you notice that the door is missing, and the reason the door is missing is because there was a tack weld on the door, a single tack weld on the hinge, and the door started sagging like that. It would hang down, and eventually that tack weld got so weak that I just cut it off and ground it down and replaced this door hinge with just a metal hinge, and that has worked very well. I have also had to recreate a handle, and so I made this handle out of metal, and it works pretty good. It latches like this, about like that, and it works very well. And so I decided later, I thought I had so much fun doing the door that I decided I was going to remake the whole door. So what I'm working on right now is I have purchased me a piece of metal here, and I'm going to take this metal. This metal is a little bit harder, not harder, but thicker, just a tad thicker than what's on there now. And so, having to recreate the door, I will cut the door out and grind it to the shape that I need. And the real benefit of remaking this door is just for a little added fun. I intend to move the damper down here so that the damper sets lower on the door. And the reason for that, I have purchased some mica. I got this on Amazon, but mica is a stone that is somewhat clear. You can see it's some big pieces of mica, and you can cut these pieces of mica with a pair of scissors, and that mica will allow me to make a window. And so this new door, my window frame is going to be a brass, this is a frame for a filing cabinet, so you slip a card in the top. Well, I will cut that out and make that so that it has a mica window. And with that little mica window, that will be a real nice door that has a little window in it and a latch. Okay, I just finished cutting the door out of sheet metal with a jigsaw, and here's my result. And it looks pretty good. A little bit of sand and grinding around the edges to get it cleaned up. But what I discovered was, when I laid the door up, the door fits fine, and it's going to work fine. But what you see is the hinge is kind of binding there. And that'll be easy fix. I'll just put some washers behind the 3 bolts on the stove side, and that will allow the thicker door to sit down a little bit better. So it looks like I'm coming along pretty good with it. And the next step I see is that when I put in the damper, that I have to make sure that the hole to the damper does not run directly into here when I shut the door. So I'll have to, I think I'll do the hinge first, drill the holes for the hinge and mount the door with the hinge, and then kind of see what the clearances are for putting the damper in. The door has been ground with a grounder around the edges and deburred with a file, so the outline of the door is finished. And my original idea was to put washers like this behind that hinge so that that door would float better. And what I found is that even those, you see, even those hinges, I mean those washers cause that door to not have enough height in there. So what I've decided to do is just do away with the idea of putting washers behind it. And I'll take a piece of the metal that I cut off and shape it to fit, and then mount the hinges on that. And as you see, when I push down on it, it doesn't, well, it does a little bit. Well, it's moved over now, but yeah, it does fit with the same thickness of material behind the hinge. It makes more and more of a flush mount. So that's the next step. I now have the door hinge mounted, and it turned out real good. And I did put this little extra piece of sheet metal that's equal to this underneath it. It sticks out a little bit. I'll spray all that black. It'll look real nice. And then the handle, the door still holds a little bit of pressure on it, but I don't think that's going to be a problem because the handle will go like this, and that handle tightens that down. So you just, when you turn it down, you kind of push back on it. Now in the last stages of completing the door, and what I've done is just put a square on where the window is going to be and kind of positioned it center of the hinge. I would rather know that the window is square to the door, even though the door may set on the stove not perfect. So, but I think I'm going to go ahead and just cut it like that so that I know it's square to the door, even if the door doesn't hang 100% square. You know, I'm shooting for square, but sometimes it doesn't always work out. But anyway, that's where we're at. Okay, so here we are at this point. The hole has been cut out with the jigsaw, and a file has been used to file all the edges and get it real clean. And now I'm experimenting with the mica itself. And the mica, there are clear pieces. You know, that's pretty clear, especially for a fire. But what I've been doing is I flip this over, and I found a piece that's thicker, so that when that's tightened down, that piece of mica, I'll cut it out here, that it will lay right in there. Worst case scenario, I could put two pieces of mica together, and even if you put two pieces together, the clear, it's still quite clear. So I'll be able to put the window in and have it so that it doesn't move when it's tightened down. So that's where we are. I'm going to cut the mica next, and then after that just go ahead and sand it real good and spray paint it, and then get ready to bolt it onto the stove. And once I get it on the stove, I will come back and show you the finished product, and then after that I'll show you a firing with the new door on it. So that's where we're at. Still, I can go and get some brass bolts. I want to get some nuts and bolts to go here that are brass, and I'm going to get a brass center for the damper, but the damper's working good. I didn't have that big a bit, so if you look closely you see that the holes are slightly small, and I can take a rat tail file, which I don't have at the moment. I lost it, so I'll just get me a new rat tail file and sit down and just work on that to open it up a little bit, but I will test fire it first to see what the result is, because I may not need to open the holes up any more than they are right now. And here's the window with a little bit of light, and you can see through it. And there we go. It is pretty clear, actually. And this is a simulation here. Bring it back around kind of in the dark, and you'll see that it's going to be a very nice effect. Anyway, I'll show it burning, and that will be the final part of the video. But right now I'm very pleased with the results so far. Okay, this is the final result of the stove build, and I just wanted to show, I put the longer 3-foot legs on. These legs were purchased at Home Depot. They're just copper pipes. They're pre-cut copper pipes, and I forget, I think they're 3/8 or they're less than 1/2 inch, I believe, but they fit in the receptacles of the original stock legs, and they are copper, and they bring the stove up a little higher so that it works better. I like it, the stove to be a little bit higher off the ground than it was. And of course you can see the brass and mica window and the new location for the damper. It's got the original stock heat tubes, but the paint job is definitely repainted with the heat paint. And then I've added this Rutland burn indicator. I have one column of the original smokestack, and then this right here is an exhaust pipe that I bought at AutoZone, and I spray painted it heat black, and it's really good. It would be perfect to push it through a wall in a small cabin, so that you could use it in a cabin or inside some kind of enclosure. Anyway, I'll show the burn next, and you will see how nice the window is. This item was purchased to be mounted on the wall of my cabin, and if you look at the heat tube, the exhaust pipe, that will fit right through there like that, and you'll be able to see how that will be able to be mounted as an exhaust pipe outside the cabin. Okay, tonight's burn, we're going to use a fire log that's just been cut on the table saw. You just take normal fire logs and just cut them into little squares, and that will burn for several hours and get your wood started. As you can see, the window turned out great. I'm very pleased with the result. The only thing that I want to do this stove next is to add some stabilizers to the legs, and that will help make the overall stove set very heavy on its legs and make it very stable. I am pleased with the result of the draw from the exhaust pipe modification, because if you don't have good draw with these little stoves, you'll have smoke coming out around the door, and you could possibly have dangers of carbon monoxide inside a small cabin enclosure type thing. But that's it. I appreciate you watching, and I hope this inspires you to do some modifications to your stove. They're a lot of fun, and thanks for watching.